I mean, that's what I think that this feels really personal. To like Imposter feels really personal, and it feels like I don't know if quiet is the right word, but like intimate, I think is maybe more of the right word.
I mean, to me, it feels honest,
Yeah,
and I don't know why,
sure.
but it does. And it's a little like when I play it and listen to it, when I'm singing along to songs now and kind of just getting my voice kind of worked up, it feels a little, you know, vulnerable and
Yeah.
but also exciting.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, again, I go, oh, that's because it's honest. I feel like that's me, you know, in there, and I'm listening to my voice back, and I'm like, that's the most honest performance I could have done. And you know, look, I'm standing in big shoes there. Like, say, you know, we all know the Elvis Presley version of Always on My Mind. You know, we all know Nat King Cole's version of Smile, and like they're done, they're good. You don't mess with that,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So I know it's kind of like, look, someone's even said to me, look, honestly, I hadn't heard the Jeff Buckley version of Lilac Wine, and people were like, really? That was like he sort of nailed it, and I'm like, so of course I listened, but I hadn't. Mine was Nina Simone. Yeah. I hadn't heard it, and Anton Corbin, who you know has worked with us for years, and a dear friend, he had said to you know, when he first heard the record, he said to Jonathan, my manager, he said, "Oh, that was very you know, very brave of Dave to cover, you know, Jeff Buckley song."
He's like, it's actually
and he's Dutch. And Jonathan was what? It's Nina Simone, right?
And he's
But
like,
I did, so of course I was like, well, listen, and then I listened to Jeff Buckley's version, and you know what? Brilliant,
Yeah.
awesome, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But my version is different.
Yeah.
We made it ours.
Yeah.
Wow, this is fascinating. I mean, these songs in particular, because they're such great songs. I know we've got to wrap up. There's so much more I want to ask about, but we got to wrap up. But it's interesting you mentioned having that on. So we'll make this last question. I'll ask you if there's anything you want to add. But you mentioned it's so interesting because in particular to me, Not Dark Yet is one that has such a vulnerability. So it's interesting that you found that in Always on My Mind. But then also I want to ask you as well about Lilac Wine, because the thing with Jeff Buckley is I feel like he couldn't do a song without hitting that vulnerability, without that just, you feel like his soul was being ripped out every single time he sang.
Yeah, I mean, he was a great singer. You know, I mean, I saw him a couple of times, once in a little bar down on the Lower East Side, and once, I don't know, I feel like it was like Hammerstein Ballroom or something like that. I went right at the sort of peak of, I guess, that record, but that he had a tremendous success with. Yeah. And I met him and I spoke to him briefly after the show, and he was, you know, a sweet guy and bouncing all over the place like we do. And after a performance, when you've revealed yourself, it's like taking your clothes off and then you got to go and speak to people. It's the last thing in the world you want to do. You know, I don't often do it actually anymore, but I just can't. But no, his voice, you know, the truth is, I had never actually heard his version of Lilac Wine. I was drawing from Nina Simone's version, and it wasn't until afterwards I sent a copy of this record of Imposter to my friend Anton Corbin, just to hear and to see what he thought. And he said to me, wow, he said, Dave, he was very, very brave of you to cover a Jeff Buckley song. And I was like, what? And he said, Lilac Wine, you cover Jeff Buckley song. I said, well, actually, it's a Nina Simone song, but I've never heard that version. He said, oh, you have to hear it. He said, but very brave. Your version is beautiful. And he loved the record. But so I, of course, immediately listened to the song that Jeff Buckley has done. And I'd never heard it. And I was very moved by his performance. And it's different. It's really different in terms of the musicality around it and the stuff like that. But what I heard in his voice was this truth, this like honesty, you know, and that's what I wanted to achieve when making Imposter. Was I wanted each song to really feel like it came from me and more importantly, from my voice. And it was the way I felt today.